Welcome to Live Unashamed, where we pause the show and invite members of our team to talk vulnerably about their own recovery, things they're learning, the resources that are actually working, and what it truly means to live unashamed.
Chris, your socks, man.
Gotta love the Jesus socks, man. And if you guys got to see them, they're awesome. It just says, I love Jesus.
Dude, they're awesome.
I'm like, we're recording podcasts. Got to get my Jesus socks on.
I kind of want to get some, to be honest with you. Those are sweet. Like, I feel like I'd really be flashy at church if I had those. Not that I'm trying to impress people at church.
Right?
I'm there for Jesus.
Heck yeah. So
dude, Dailies.
I love dailies.
Do you?
And you do not.
Those dailies, man. They are, I'll just be honest. They're just a real source of shame for me, Chris. It's something that I still constantly nag myself and be like, hey, I should be more consistent in doing some things to like stay in recovery.
Yeah.
And I've made some excuses where it's like, hey, I'm like, awesome. I've gone and done all this trauma work and I do therapy and I do this stuff, but I'm like, in terms of day-to-day living, this is a really hard area for me because it means I have to sacrifice some time in other areas to seek out God every day. And I'm doing that in small ways, but there's some work here. So,
yeah,
I don't know. I was having a hard time. I told you no a couple times on this subject.
You're like, no. And I'm like, well, you're not doing dailies. Let's talk about it. Like, why would you think that these would be super important to do?
Why do I think that?
Yeah.
I think dailies are important to do because it keeps you consistently grounded in your relationship with God and in tune with what you're feeling and what you're experiencing, and lowers your stress levels over time, I think, when you're more consistent.
Yeah, totally, man. And it helps you get to the point where you can start processing emotion instead of numbing from it. Because that's why we go to porn, is to numb emotions that we don't want to feel.
So for someone who doesn't know what a daily is, if they don't know that 12-step window,
I guess we ought to talk about that.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
So a daily obviously is something that you do every day. But it's something that you can do that reminds you of recovery, something that reminds you of, hey, I need to step more into my sobriety. Like, for instance, like some of my clients, I have them write on their mirror, today I choose sobriety. So every day when they wake up, the first thing that they see when they look in the mirror is themselves saying, today I choose sobriety.
Love
because
that.
Then when the addiction rears its head later in the day, when the temptations come up, they're like, you know what? I actually already made that decision. I already know where I'm going to go. I'm not going to go to my addiction because I've already chose sobriety.
So is this something that happens like morning or afternoon or night or all of the above?
Yes.
Okay.
Because it's sitting on your mirror, right? You take a dry erase marker and you're writing that on the mirror, and it's there.
So what are some other examples of dailies?
So a daily for me, for a long, long time, daily affirmations were phenomenal for me.
Okay.
Just finding daily affirmations. There's a book by Hazelden that is a daily affirmation book that I'm going to pull it up right now and tell you what it's called because it's like freaking awesome.
Well, while you're finding that, I'll talk about daily affirmations. Actually something that I started doing once I started to get into some of the deeper trauma work. I realized that I have a couple shame scripts around, well, I just identified some things that I believed about myself, which were, I'm bad, sex is bad, God actually doesn't have my best interest in mind. That was an interesting one.
Wow.
I wouldn't say super unique.
When you think about it, if you're thinking those things every single day, how much easier is it for you to believe that?
It's so much easier. So I actually, for a while, and I will say this helped. I don't know, I'm curious why you stopped doing it as well, but it was so helpful for me to get grounded in some of those truths where I was like, I would get in the car every morning and I'd be like, I am good. And then I would like say it in funny voices. I'd be like, I am good. And then I would like yell it. Good. I'd be like, yeah. I'd be like, I'm good. Right. But like doing that kind of like helped me get grounded in the morning. But what were you saying? Did you find the?
Yeah, I found
the
it.
book?
So it's called In God's Care.
Okay.
So it's a daily affirmation on spirituality. So since we're sitting here talking about Jesus and God and stuff, this is a really good book. Like, this was something that I kept in my truck. So every day before I would walk into the office, I would pull this book out, and it would talk about emotions to pay attention to for the day.
Mm-hmm.
And it would have some connection with God, things to pay attention to. And it was an affirmation in there. And I loved it because then during the day, all of a sudden some of those things would come up and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what it's talking about. I started paying attention to actually looking at my emotions instead of numbing them, like paying attention to those things. So these daily things, and I did it for years. And you ask, well, why did I stop? I stopped because I have other dailies to this day. Like this month, right now we're recording this in January, I'm hitting 17 years of sobriety. And I still do dailies every day.
So what do dailies look like now?
So dailies for me is connecting to God, and that may look different, but most of the time it is me praying to God in the shower. Like totally praying to God in the shower. Sometimes if I'm rushing, I will pray when I get to the office, because a lot of guys will send out prayer requests, and I'm like, I'm going to pray during that time. I'm always trying to find a way to connect with God every single day. And it's not just through prayer, but I do pray every day, sincerely talking to God. But for me, it is finding ways to connect with God, whether it's through music, whether it's through connecting through the brotherhood and connecting through prayer, whether it's scripture study that me and my wife started doing together again. For a long time, that scripture study was important for me. Mm-hmm. And that was a huge daily for me, because I used to be like, oh yeah, I'm always reading my scriptures. Going to seminary, in high school, they're like, you reading the scriptures? Yep.
Yeah.
And I tell people that I'm reading, I ain't reading shit. So, yeah. but now
the truth comes out.
I had to do something in my life.
Yeah.
That was different than what I was doing, because what I was doing was not working anymore. Mm-hmm. And I had to do something different. I'm like, what if I started reading scriptures every day and really just taking it to heart and finding messages for me? Turns out God wrote scriptures for me, not for everybody else. Like, I would read the scriptures and I'm like, Autumn, listen to this scripture. This was written for me. I'd be like crying. I've never cried over scriptures ever in my life until I started seeing them differently and reading them for me, not for other people, because I was doing it daily.
So, Chris, I know, like, you're an Atomic Habits guy. You recommended that book to me.
Yep.
Right? I've read the first 4 chapters like twice and never gotten past that, right? But you're like...
Got the daily app on here and everything.
Yeah. So, in context of some of the skills that book teaches, like, what would that say about kind of like a daily habits and things, and how that changes your life? What does that mean?
Sorry, say that again.
So you love Atomic Habits, right?
Yeah.
And that's all that's just kind of encapsulates this idea of like changing identity through daily habits. What are some things that you've learned in that book that have taught you about this concept of doing dailies, and how that changes the way that you see yourself and in recovery?
Yeah. I would say just doing dailies that work for me, that I don't like one of the ones that I'm doing right now is making sure I do, it's called micro learning.
Yeah.
So spending at least 15 minutes a day doing some micro learning. That is reading books. So it's called Mindscape. So it's an app that you can utilize, that you can pay for, and it's called Mindscape, and it downloads like a bazillion different books, and you can read through the whole book, and it summarizes the best points in 30 minutes or less.
Oh, wow.
So you're taking like some of the best points of reading through those things. And so it's been awesome for me. And I love it. But some of those daily pieces for me too, still to this day, is when I went to my very first Warrior Heart boot camp. We get dog tags at boot camp. And I still have that dog tag. I can pull it out of my pocket right now. It is still sitting in my pocket. And because every day that sits in my pocket, when I grab my keys, I know what I'm fighting for. I know that I'm fighting for my heart. I'm fighting for my wife, my kids, and I'm fighting for my connection with God. It is a daily reminder of what I need to fight for when I get ready for the day. And I still do that to this day.
Wow, dude. So something you said just stuck out to me, and I'm just going to connect this to what I'm dealing with right now. You said, I do dailies that work for me. And one of the reasons I have such a hard time with dailies is because there's this shame script for me that's attached to like, okay, well, it's my whole life growing up, I was always just not doing enough. I'm not doing enough of these things that I hate, but I'm supposed to do. And I just realized as you were talking, dude, like, I don't have to do things that I hate in order to have good routines that keep me grounded in recovery and sobriety.
Yeah.
This is a tool that you use to connect to yourself and to God in meaningful ways, and it doesn't have to be miserable.
Right. Some people might look at scripture. Like I used to look at scriptures that way, right?
Yeah.
I was like, and a lot of people don't like scriptures. And so maybe that's not your jam. But what about looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, you know what? I freaking love you.
Yeah.
And you're saying it every day to where you are believing it now.
Wow. Yeah, dude. So some of the dailies that I have right now, and I do have some, like I call my dad every single day at 6:45 a.m. on the way to work. And we talk about emotions, and it's been awesome. It's actually really helps me kind of like open up early in the day and feel like I'm connecting with someone. It's great. The other thing I do is I pray in the car. Like pretty much every time I get in the car, especially when I'm stressed, which I'm usually stressed when I get in the car because I've just gotten done with something and I'm leaving. There's a little bit of stress. I pray. Those are the two things that I could label, and I could say, yeah, I do those things. But I'm just talking out loud. Like I feel like there's some things I'm curious over the next week or two what will come up for me as I think about this in a new way. Because I just hate it. Like when you said, hey, let's talk about this for the live. I was like, heck no. I don't want to talk about that. That's the thing that just bothers me. It makes me feel ashamed. I feel like I have to do something. I have to be more consistent. I have to do this. And that's what I'm realizing. So
and allowing yourself the grace that if you miss a day or 2 days, then you're so what?
Yeah.
Like get back into it. You just
start again.
You just keep going.
Okay.
Right? Because if you look at it as, you know what, say you were using an app to keep track of it, like in the Atomic Habits app, you can keep track of those things. And it's like, oh, well, I don't know if I'm really creating a habit. Well, if you hit 20 out of the last 30 days, that's 20 times more than you did the last month before. Mm-hmm. So freaking dope. Be proud of that and be like, you know what, I'm moving in the forward direction in my recovery. I'm doing some things that are daily that really help me see myself differently and help me see my identity differently, help me feel different about who I am, feel comfortable about who I am.
So there's some grace there, right? It's not, that's the other
area. Have grace, man.
That's the other area where I struggle is I'm like, God, frick, I woke up late. Oh, frick, I did like, I didn't read my scriptures today. Like, oh crap, I didn't, wow. I'm just putting all this together, but
that's why I love those two words. So what? For real. Like it's powerful. Like a lot of people are like, what? And I'm like, no, for real. Like so what? If you have a temptation that comes in and it is like so crazy powerful and you start getting to some rituals, things that you do before you even act out. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I'm like going down this road again. And then you're like, you could either start hating on yourself and go there and then drop into the addiction and then you're back into shame again and you're in this vicious addiction cycle. Or you could say, you know what? I'm out. So what if I had a temptation? So what? I can just keep moving.
Well, I'll tell you what I'm taking from this. I think that my perspective has been changed a little bit and I feel a little more comfortable approaching that, knowing that there's some grace involved and that it doesn't have to be miserable. So I'm committing. I'm going to find some things that I love doing every single day to ground me in recovery.
We want to know what you guys are doing.
Yeah, we want to know what you guys are doing.
Either change or what has worked for you. What dailies are you guys doing now that you love and work? If
you want to email me some things that have worked, I would love that because you guys all know you've been hearing some of my stuff. I'm trying to get sober right now, and it would be super helpful. So email us, sam@unashamedunafraid.com, chris@unashamedunafraid.com. Love to hear from you guys. If you're listening to this podcast and you love it, give us a 5-star rating so we can get this to more people. Follow us on social media @unashamedunafraid. And if you're thinking about being a donor, we'd love to have you on our team of outsiders. You get access to the bonus content and lots of blessings from heaven, I think.
Yep, totally.
So think about it. Go to our website. I'd love to have you on that team. Helps us advance this cause and move forward. And until we see you next time on Live Unashamed, we invite you to live unashamed.